Okay, you guys, now we are back and we are reviewing the rescinding of the signature on the birth record. Okay. As you can see here, this document has been pre-addressed to the United States Secretary of State. You would need to enter in on this line here. You would need to enter in that information for the Secretary of State in which you were born. You can leave both of these addresses here at the top as a serves notice for both departments, letting them know that you have let each department know accordingly. Okay. The purpose of this document is so that you can cancel out the contract. You can cancel out the contract accordingly, as well as use this instrument for your benefit without being bound to the citizenship, basically the citizenship principles that are held to it. Okay. Which is announcing your living soul, as well as letting them know that you are coming forward to take over your trust. So let's read on. Notice to principal is notice to agent. Notice to agent is notice to principal. Okay, so what that means, you guys, is that you are letting them know that you are putting different departments on notice. You are the principal will be considered here the United States. Okay, you were putting them on notice and you were considered the agent. So the notice to the agent would be considered to yourself. So you're saying, as I state for myself, I state for you, likewise, and vice versa. Okay. A rescinding of informant signature on birth record or constructive fraud, a living testimony in a form of an affidavit. This is simply letting them know what type of document this is. If you didn't know, the mother is considered an informant when she fills out the application for the birth certificate. She is considered an informant, which makes her an employee of the state or a slave of the state, making her property of the state, and any child that she births who is entered into this contract is therefore property of the state as well. Okay. Now, also, I would like to put on notice that there are two different signature recensions there. This one that we're going over is the signature recension for mothers with children. Okay. Now, there is one for males. Specifically, when you open up your packet or when you open up your module, you will see that there is one for males specifically without children on there, and then there is one for women with children. For any woman who does not have children who is completing this affidavit, simply erase the portion at the bottom where it asks you to insert your children, and you can move forward like that. All right, I just wanted to let you guys know in case you were confused. So it reads, I hereby declare relief and mandate the administrator as public servant of we the people to read this thoroughly and completely with comprehension. This document is of a very serious nature and is not frivolous. There will be no presumptions or assumptions, no tacit agreements, no waivers of rights, no hearsay, no lawyering or attornment from the bench. I am asking only for the truth, facts, honor, and fair justice. Okay. I'm not going to read everything in its entirety because I do want to give you guys something to do, but I do want to touch on the core basis. All right. I, first, middle, and last name of the living soul. As you can see here, even though there is not a name here, this will be the format that you insert your name. Okay. A living soul, being of age and of a sound mind and competent nature, do hereby produce this affidavit of truth under the penalty of perjury and reserve the right to amend and be notified if any line item is proven at error without recourse and without prejudice. Right status, standing, jurisdiction. Above all else, I, living soul, in And from the beginning, invoke my right of self-determination, which is considered to be the foundational stone of all human rights. I hereby invoke my right of redress of grievance. So as I said before, if there is something in a template that you do not know what it is, I encourage you to educate yourself and to do further research on what these different formats or what these different phrases mean. Okay, so I would encourage you to look up redress of grievance. All right. I hereby stand as a belligerent claimant upon these rights and others as required. Search belligerent claimant. The Supreme Court is said that the rights of life and personal liberty are the natural right of man. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. And this would be found in the case of U.S. versus Cruikshank 92, U.S. 5422, Auto 54223, LED 588. You can look that up, okay? The individual rights guaranteed by our Constitution and treaties cannot be compromised or ignored by government or by its courts. For example, in the United States versus Johnson 76 F supplement of 538, 539, et cetera, federal district court Judge James Alger Fee ruled that the privilege against self-incrimination is neither accorded to the passive resistance, nor to the person who is ignorant of his rights, nor to one indifferent thereto. It is a fighting clause. Its benefits can be retained only by sustained combat. It cannot be claimed by attorney or solicitor. It is valid only when insisted upon by a belligerent claimant in person. And these are the cases in which these things have been ruled on. So go and view that, okay? Notice to the verdict's confrontational language in these cases: fighting, combat, and most surprising, belligerent. Did you ever expect to ever read a federal court condemning people for being passive or ignorant? Did you ever expect to see a verdict that encouraged people to be in court? Better go back and reread the extraordinary verdict and commit it to memory, for it succinctly describes the essence of the American legal system. Clearly, we must do something, for as Sir Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. The presumption of liberty, rights we retain for ourselves, freedom lies in everyone's heart, but it must do more than just lie there. Constitutions and treaties are the supreme law, statutes and corporate bylaws, where it is essential, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by the rule of law. And this is under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, okay? Now, the reason that you will see these different cases in these different codes and titles and things of that nature at the beginning of this affidavit is because what you consider this affidavit to be is a non-rebutted affidavit. What an unrebutted affidavit is, it is an actual factual document that states nothing but clear case, clear laws, clear truth that cannot be refuted. Okay, so this here is what we are refuting as far as when it comes to the signature and the contract of the birth certificate. We are coming through and we are giving them no room to dispute because everything is justified, okay? By God Almighty and through the supremacy clause of the Constitution and treaties of the supreme law, it is I alone who shall determine my status, standing, and honor in jurisdiction. No person shall be deprived of the right to prosecute or defend his own cause in any of the courts. In Genesis, God gave mankind dominion over the land, air, water. The three jurisdictions, the making of law. Okay, what you guys have to understand is that you're going to see Bible verses because the concept of common law is the Bible. The Bible has been used for many years, and a lot of people don't understand as a means of religion and the means of worshiping the God outside of yourself, etc., etc. That's neither here nor there. However, what you must understand and embed within your soul is that the Bible is a book of laws. Okay, it is the ruling word that tells us how to live amongst men, how to live amongst the earth, how to be in tune with God, and how to prosper within the land and live justly without the oppression of the said GOV apostrophe T. Okay. So when you see these Bible verses, you're not subscribing to Christianity. You are not subscribing anything. You are simply using the Bible as the laws that it pertains, using the Bible as it should be utilized, as it has always supposed to be utilized. Okay. So in Genesis 2, verse 2, chapter 2, verse 7, and I, God, created man from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. That's basically telling you right there that you are a living soul. That's letting them know, hey, this is what it is. A court has no jurisdiction to determine its own jurisdiction. For a basic issue in any case before a tribunal is its power to act, and a court must have the authority to decide that question the first instant. And that's in the case of Rescue Army versus Municipal Court. So here you go. You say that I, the living soul, you put your name, a living soul, I am not a federal citizen of the District of Columbia. I am a sovereign indigenous and I claim my rights as such. Okay. And so when you read down into here, it speaks about what makes a valid contract. Okay. So I'll just scroll past this a little bit. And so the elements of a true contract, we'll jump right into that because I want you guys to read this on your own as far as when it speaks about what a contract is and what the law says as it pertains to what a contract is supposed to be. So the elements of a true contract is that parties competent to contract. The parties to contract should be competent, being of the age of a consent of a sound mind, not disqualified from contracting by any law to which he or she is subject. A flaw in capacity may be due to minority, lunacy, idiocy, under influence, drunkenness, or dissimilarity of kind. The parties should be of the same kind, being either legal fiction actors or natural living men, women, allowing more than two parties, but never a mixture of these kinds. So basically what this is saying is that, first of all, you were a baby. How could you enter into a contract? Okay. And furthermore, you went into a contract with a corporation. A corporation cannot do business with the living soul. That is the key component to this sovereignty walk that I want you guys to embed within your spirit. Any kind of contract that you've entered into with any business, any credit card, any of any kind, they don't have the right to do business with you. Therefore, that gives you the open and free range to discharge any and all debts. But I don't want to go off a subject, but I want you guys to know that a business or corporation, a government of any kind can never do business with a living soul, which is the purpose of them considering you to be dead at birth and creating you as a corporate fiction so that they are able to interact with you justly, when in fact that is out of the law. That is not how it's supposed to be. Okay. Number 2, free and genuine consent. The consent of the parties to the agreement must be free and genuine. The consent of the parties should not be obtained by misrepresentation, fraud, undue influence, coercion, or mistake. If the consent is obtained by any of these means, then the contract is not valid or legally, lawfully enforceable. That pretty much says the same thing. You cannot consider me a dead fiction because there was no free and genuine consent. All right. Full and honest disclosure. Number 3, when negotiating a contract, full disclosure is the step of providing all material information or telling the whole truth about any matter which may influence the decision making of other party or parties before they decide to enter into the contract. If either party fails to make the disclosure, the contract is null and void. So how many of our mothers were told that you were in fact killing your child off and considering your child to be dead to create a corporate fiction when they entered us into a contract of the birth certificate? How many of us were told when we birthed our children that this in fact is creating a corporate fiction and your child is in fact dead and is now our property as so seen forth as we say fit? Nobody received full and honest disclosure, okay? Now, number 4, valuable consideration. The consideration is something of value possessed by the parties that is brought to the contract table. This is something of value is bargained for and given in exchange for a promise or a performance. The parties must receive a benefit and each suffer a detriment. To be enforceable, a contract must have valuable consideration. A contract is enforceable if it has insufficient and unequal considerations without agreement. So what was the benefit of the birth certificate? Think about that. What was the benefit? What did they say? Nobody ever said the benefit of getting what they made it to be is that the benefit of getting a birth certificate is that your child can enroll in schools if there was all of these frolicking through the land. But in fact, there was nothing that would either benefit there was nothing that would benefit our side. It was all about the gain of the GOV''T. Okay. Number 5, certainty of terms. The terms and conditions of the contract must be fully disclosed and agreed upon and must be certain and fixed. Any subsequent variation of terms must be agreed. Okay, we already, that's basically breaking it down on its own. Once again, meeting of the minds. A meeting of the minds, concisus ad idem, occurs between the parties when they recognize each other, understand their mutual obligations, and agree. A meeting of the mind occurs between living men, women in lawful matters, common law jurisdiction, and between legal fiction actors in legal matters, admiralty, maritime jurisdiction. A contract must be either lawful or legal. If one party to a contract makes a signature as an accommodation party to a legal fiction person, while the other party makes an autograph for a living man or woman, the parties are unequal and the contract is null and void. So your mom, us as mothers, living souls, we put a contract, we signed a signature, we signed as a living soul with a corporation who provided a signature. So you have the registrar's name, you have the doctor's name, or whoever's name is on there. The doctor was acting in the capacity as a doc tender, which is not a living soul, is operating in the form of an employment, as a form of as a worker. Okay, so that right there, another reason that the contract is null and void. Autographs and signatures. That's what I want you guys to understand now. You are no longer signaturing anything. And if they have any questions about how you are signing your documents, that is none of their business. You tell them I operate in the private. Therefore, I sign my documents as such. I do not forfeit any of my rights prior to signing nor thereafter. Okay. So please be sure, you guys, to understand the difference of autographs and signatures as it reads. Lawful written contracts between living men, women must carry the wet ink autographs by the parties. Compromising living identification, such as a thumbprint, but more often living, standing, is recognized by an ambiguous declaration with the handwritten wet ink autograph included. The prefix by and or the other words, all rights reserved and without prejudice, written below. Legal written contracts between legal fiction actors must carry the wet ink signatures of the party as accommodation parties from a man or a woman. Okay. Privity of contract. A contract exists only between the parties. No third party can obtain rights contained within a contract or buy or sell a contract without the express permission of the original parties. When the moment that document had been signed from the doctor, they took the document and then they gave it to the registrar. The registrar then took that document and gave it to the GOVT. The GOVT then took that document and entered you into the stock market. Okay, that document had been touched by 4 or 5 parties. All right. Title 28 USC 3002, Section 15A states United States is a federal corporation and not a government, including the judicial procedural section. All right. So basically, everybody's in an uproar about, the president or whatever quote, selling our sovereignty. How? When it reads here, go look this section up. Title 28 USC 3002, Section 15A. The United States is a federal corporation and not a government. Understand that. That is the president of the United States. That is not the president of the government. All right. So I'll allow you guys to read through and, read the claim of constructive fraud. In numerous cases, Kae'z has said in summary that since governments choose to incorporate themselves, they must abide by the same rules as any other corporations. That governments are now de facto as corporations, and they pass no laws, but only corporate bylaws called rules, codes, statutes, executive orders, ordinance, and policies. That all rules, codes, statutes, executive orders, ordinances, and policies are colorable, and governed only by the consent of the governed, and through the fraudulent creation of unlawful conversions of mankind into a legal person, citizen, resident, obtained by the tacit agreement and not honorable contracts. Okay, so when you see here in number 3 where it says and governed only by the consent to be governed, that means that's speaking of the sheeple. You have people who are consenting to be governed. Okay, the people who consent to be governed are the people who take what I say and take what you say. They consider it to be a joke. They think that we're crazy. So those are the people who consent to be governed. All right, so those are who those colorable laws, rules, codes, statutes, and executive orders and ordinances abide to. All right. So you will go through when you will read this as here it speaks about the ceste cuve. All right. So as I told you before, you see here it says, I am a mother, a woman, a living soul. On the document, on this same document that is altered for the men, it will read, I am a man. I am a man, a living soul. All right. And it would say that my mother was hospitalized and so on and so forth. Okay. So in this one, it reads how the mother, you say then having recently undergone the extreme duress of major medical trauma, commonly known as childbirth, and probably under the influence of painkiller, being anxious to go home to my comfortable bed. It reads different. It reads that my mother, but nonetheless, as you can see here, it speaks about the informant in paragraph 2 or paragraph 4, excuse me. Then through the constructive fraud of a government, I was coerced by the fondling hospital. The hospital was considering a fondling place. Okay. This is where they take it is only for life and death. It is nothing more than to benefit the FDA, et cetera, but I won't go there. Into signing these documents as an informant, one who gives someone up to another. So you have your rats, they are also considered informants. They give up to another. Okay. They give up people to the police or to the government or however it goes. All right. So you read into this, continue to read. So here is where, in this paragraph, it says it was a fraud created by a powerful, corrupt and group of controlling men. All right. You're going to put your straw man name, since straw man name was fraudulently created on, this is going to be the state of, if you were born in Michigan, you're going to put the Michigan, you're going to put Missouri, wherever you're from, with its creation birth date as the record on the day, on the net recorded on the, you want to put, now this is not this, basically you guys, what I want you to understand is that this paragraph here is not the paragraph for your official birthday. This is the paragraph that your document was recorded. Okay. So it may be, if your birthday is June 19th, it may have been on the 24th of July. It all depends, but you wanted to erase the date. You want to put the date recorded on the 5th day of You're going to erase month and put June or July, whatever, and then you're going to put the year. Okay, the birth year. The instrument number is generally located on the right number. Sometimes it begins with a 1, but there are so many different documents and people were born at different times. So there's no telling what type of sequence of numbers that you have, but it's either going to read an instrument file number or registration number, one of the two. Okay. And then of official records of, so you're going to put the county of the state that you were born in. I cannot stress enough that this is for the state that you were born in, okay? Department of Human Services of the state that you were born in, with its own unique QSEP, which is something that you just leave that redacted. Okay, that number is attached to the birth certificate. When you put it into the Fidelity website, it'll give you the QSEP number. It's a long process, but nonetheless, that's not what we're talking about. It's also dead, having no remedy available to its fictionally dead entity. All right, now when you move down here into the second paragraph, this is where you're going to stay. While I, living soul of the family of, if your last name is Johnson, if you're Brittany Janine Johnson, born alive on the date, this is going to be your real birthday. This is going to be the day that the living soul was born. Okay. And so you want to make sure that upon the land jurisdiction known as whatever state that is, de jure republic was as its signatory officer, person without full and honest disclosure of what that meant, was a minor at the time and therefore not even a valid party of the contract. Okay, so you will continue to read. I read this, you guys, read this. You go in here and you are, so for the men, you won't have this. You won't have some of these paragraphs here as it pertains to a mother claiming the rights of her children. Okay, so you're going to put everything accordingly. This is the common law format of your name. For those of you who are wondering why the semicolon is after the first, the middle, and the is in between there, that's the common law version of your name. This is why we are putting this here, because once again, we are stating facts about common law as well as constitutional law. Here, as you can see, it says, I, living soul, as a principal creditor and beneficiary of the Ceste Cuvée Trust. The Ceste Cuvée was created through the Social Security Department. That was the whole point of the that is a part of the process, should I say, of creating the fictional character, is to come forward and take over the Ceste Cuvée, which was formatted in 1666. I highly encourage you guys to go do more research about the Ceste Cuvée Trust, as it will give you more insight on how to gain access to that full faith and credit. But nonetheless, a part of the process of us moving through these modules, we will be coming in and taking over that Ceste Cuvée, okay? I command you to settle this matter and remove me as signatory informant from the birth registrar of my children, my uniquely created, biologically God-given property, and acknowledge to the claim of my return from sea to claim my estate and the estates of my fathers and grandfathers as therefore rightful heir, as well as my priority claim of my property and estate. All right, so you're going to attach copies of your children's birth certificate when you send this in to both the Secretary of the United States as well as the state that they were born in. So when you are authenticating for your children, it needs to be done in the state that they were born in. And the exhibits is simply going to be the straw man format and the common law format. How many ever children that you have, you are going to insert the number of them with their name, and the exhibits is simply the attachments that are your birth certificate records, okay? So when you move along, what you'll do is you will, hold on, let me see here. You're going to make sure that you get this document notarized. Hold on, you guys. You're going to make sure that you get this document notarized. And once again, continue to read forward, continue to read through, check out these U.S. codes, 1746, unsworn declarations under penalties of perjury. I do hereby at peace with honor command you, our public servants, to follow this mandate, directive, and rescind void ab initio and return that which is mine. Okay, so you want to get this notarized as well. All right, so we'll be moving on to the next process. And then also the you would be also attaching, because everything is going to the same people. So at the end of this, you want to see here that you are the additional pages of the affidavit of sovereignty and common law copyright affidavit may be bound to this document. So you can send, because all of those documents are going to go together. Okay, so I will catch you guys on the next I'm going to be next showing you the letter that we fill out to, for some states they don't have applications, and we'll move forward, and I will see you shortly. Okay, and alrighty, so we are moving along, and we are still in our module 1, birth certificate authentication. All right, so I just wanted to let you guys put your eyes on the letter that would be submitted if the Secretary of State does not provide a application for you to authenticate your birth certificate. Always keep in mind, everyone, that you are not apostilling anything. You are authenticating in all cases. And if your state claims that they do not authenticate, you must be straightforward in letting them know that you are authenticating your birth certificate only. All right. So as you can see here, you would insert the date, you would insert your name, address, city, state, zip, phone number, email address. And this would go to the Commissions Department of the Secretary of State of wherever you were born. All right. And it simply reads that I, living sole name, and requesting authentication for the birth certificates of. So you're going to put the all caps name. So if you and your children were born in the same state, you are going to put your names, everybody's names. Okay. Authentications to be sent to the country of Taiwan. I get a lot of people who want to authenticate for Jamaica. They want to authenticate for Nigeria. They want to do this. The purpose of using Taiwan is because it's a non-Hague Convention country. Although there are plenty of non-Hague Convention countries. Nonetheless, it is ever changing, and also you want to make sure that you are using a country that you know is has a solid foundation, and at any time it won't be changing. They would expect those who are melanated to go to Jamaica, to go to Nigeria. They would expect that. So it's ever changing. Okay, America, or the United States Corporation, is a Hague Convention country, meaning they participate in human trafficking. They participate in child trafficking. It's not just, they consider you to be a child. They consider you to be a minor, okay? Being a minority has nothing to do with the color or pigmentation of your skin. Being a minor simply means that you are unable and incapable to handle your own affairs, okay? So if you want to get fancy and use a different state, and they end up sending it back, I don't have anything to do with that. Okay, you will have to do the process all over. We use Taiwan because we use Taiwan. No, you won't be sent to Taiwan if something goes wrong. You won't be, penalized by Taiwan. This is a part of the process. Okay, this is a part of the process. Simply, there's nothing more or nothing less. All right. Enclosed are birth certificates, self-addressed return envelopes with the postage, and then the money order. So you want to put the number of money order. So if you have 5 birth certificates and they charge $10, you want to have five different money orders, or you can have one money order for the amount of $50. Okay. This document is recorded as proof of request. You want to autograph this document. All right. So that means that you would buy your name, living sole format, all rights reserved, UCC 1-308, or without prejudice, all rights reserved, UCC 1-308. Okay, you get this document notarized and you send it off. Now, what I want to explain to you is how we are sending off our applications with our money orders. You are sending everything registered mail, as explained in the introduction video. You send everything registered mail. When sending off your birth certificate, you want to put in a self-addressed envelope with tracking, which means that when you go into the post office, your envelope is not to be closed. You do not seal your envelope until you get to the post office and retrieve that tracking number, okay? You would need to do this for both the state and federal level. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to move on to the next process of, after you have authenticated your birth certificate on a state level in the state that you were born in. Once you receive that back, you will now be authenticating on a federal level using the DS-4194 application at the Office of Authentication. And just one moment, we'll move on to that next part. Okay, everyone. Here you will see what we're looking at right now is the DS-4194 application that will be used for your request for authenticating your birth certificate on a federal level. As I spoke about before, the process will be pretty much the same as well as far as it goes with the self-addressed envelope, as far as it goes as it pertains to the tracking information, et cetera, provided within the module or within your birth certificate authentication packet. You will see an example on how to complete your application, okay? Now, as you see here, you're using your name in the format of your living soul, not all caps, all right? So you have John Doe Tom. So basically that will be the middle name, first, last, first, and middle. The email is optional. You can, like I tell you before in the introduction video, you want to have a text now number, a Google phone number, or Freedom Voice number of some sort, because you don't want your personal information entered into this process in any way, okay? As you move down to the country. So basically case type, this would not be considered for you. So that's why this is left blank intentionally. The country is the USA. Now, when you are entering your information as far as your address goes, as told in the introduction video, you are addressing everything in the care of, okay? So you're simply putting the care of the address, and you will, if there is an apartment number or a box, a suite, you will put that on line 2. You will put the city, the state, and you are putting the brackets around your zip code as it signifies you are zip exempt. Are you submitting, retrieving in section 2? We're on section 2. Are you submitting or retrieving this request on behalf of another individual? No. If this is for your personal birth certificate, no. All right. However, if this is for your child, the application will go in reverse. Your child's name would be in section 1 for the name and everything. And then you will select yes in section 2, and you will insert your information as of to whose application or who you are requesting this authentication for on whose behalf, okay? I highly suggest that each person has their own application, all right? So when we move down to section 3, shipping details, it says that you are selecting self-addressed envelope. You can put the box, and if you go on to the Office of Authentication website, you will see that they are no longer accepting DHS and they are no longer accepting FedEx applications or FedEx mail, all right? So it asks you to specify who will be sending it. That's USPS, the United States Postal Service. Now, As I told you before, you're going to go in with your envelope still open because you need to provide the tracking information. And not only that, you will need to insert your tracking information here. Your tracking number will go here where it says enter at the post office on self-addressed envelope. They're going to stick the tracking on the envelope, and that is going to be the number that you insert here in this box. So if you want this to go to a different address, you may do so, or you can simply select the same as above, because we should all have, per the introduction, we should all have a UPS box or a virtual mailbox of some sort. All right. In section 4, it's going to ask you what country. Taiwan. Once again, if you want to get fancy and they send it back to you, that has absolutely nothing to do with me. You will have to deal with that on your own. But Taiwan is the country for the documentation information. All right. When you select the number of documents, you're going to put number 1. You're going to just put 1 because each person, once again, is going to have their own application. This automatically pre-fills the birth certificate box over and over again, so don't worry about that. It asks you once again the total number of documents. You're going to put number 1, and the estimated cost is going to be $20. So you want to submit a document. You want to submit your money order. Make sure that you guys are keeping track of your money orders at all times, okay? On the instructions for the birth certificate authentication, I provide you with the mailing address to the Office of Authentication, as well as with the phone number and the business hours. You can just, when you print, you don't have to print every page. You can be selective on your printing, and you can only print page 1, and that will do you good and save you paper, because all of these pages are not necessary. Okay. If you want to look into more, it also has down here in the bottom area, it tells you more information about it tells you more information about the process and the purpose of authenticating your birth certificate and different things of that nature. So if you want to read through that, you may do so. I don't see the address on here. They don't have the address, but nonetheless, that is the process for authenticating your birth certificate on a state level. And this will also complete Module 1, Part 1 for authenticating the birth certificate. Once again, please review the instructions thoroughly if you have any questions, as I have put everything there that you need accordingly. And be sure to keep documentation of everything that you send out, every form that you fill out. Okay. And I thank you guys so much for joining me. And we will be moving on to Module 1, Part 2, where we are changing our ethnicity. Thank you guys so much.